Hello, this is the voice of Stewart Pearce, and welcome to my series of deep dialogues. These are vital conversations I engage in with global soul stewards from all over the planet, providing us with vital understandings about how we can create a new hierarchy of values to help us evolve into a brave new world. I hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening.
And watching. Hello. And welcome all you beacons of light. It's wonderful to have you with us. Here I am in conversation in deep dialogue with the wonderful Dr. Lotte Valentin. Who is a very, very fascinating lady. So I can't wait to share her with you. And welcome, Elisa, in the Bay Area. How exciting. I've just been in San Francisco and it was very cold. I was quite surprised. I was doing a 3-city tour working for an organization called the British American Business Council. Nikki, hello, all the way from France. So we got a variety of people who are zooming in. Well, let me introduce you to this wonderful lady. I have her bio in front of me. So Dr. Lotte Valentin is an N.M.D. It's still cold in San Francisco. The Dr. Valentin is an N.M.D., which I'm sure she will take us through a real definition of, because she's an expert, a master mistress of naturopathy. She is also an author, medical medium, an oracle, an ancestral healer, a podcast hostess, and of course, keynote speaker. Lottie has published Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, which is an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality. And the book won the category entitled Spiritual Leadership in August 2021, awarded by Living Now Books. Dr. Lottie is also the creator of Healing Your Ancestral Mother Wound, which she produced in collaboration with Hemi-Sync, and leads workshops for the Theosophical Society and the Shift Network. Lottie has had 2 near-death experiences which awakened her psychic abilities and activated her life path. And she was then guided to attend medical school at the age of 54 and is now a licensed physician. So welcome, Dr. Lottie.
No, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, darling. It's wonderful too. I mean, I'd love to pitch into the supernatural, if I may, just as a beginning, because it's wonderful that you reach this point of maturity in your years after 2 near-death experiences. 1 was enough, but why 2? Can you reveal to us what they were about?
Well, I think the reason for 2, I would say, I didn't get the full message during the first. They saved me too quickly, and I was hemorrhaging to death in the ER, and they saved me. And so I just went outside my body, and I knew the peace, the love, no time on the other side. And then I got really sick, and I had a second experience, and that showed me the angels in the light, the unconditional love, the whitest, brightest, purest, whitest light you can imagine. And it's just unconditional love. And we come from that light. We return to that light. We are part of that light. And then there was an outline of angels in the light, and I heard the most beautiful music that you can't even make on the earth plane. And that music came from the angels, but I didn't believe in angels. So I had to experience for myself all the things I didn't believe in. So to be with that light, that is to be with source, with God, with creation itself. And then the magic of these angels just producing all this beautiful music and unconditional love. And then there were spirit guides that showed me the earth from a distance, as if I'm out in outer space. And there was a grid around the earth. And I call it the silvery glittery fishnet, because there were like sparkles at the different nodes of that grid. And they told me everything on earth is connected to each other, and everything on earth is connected up to this grid. And so with that message, I got sent back to earth. And then, I had to really change my whole belief system, because even though I was confirmed when I was 14, I was Lutheran, I was raised in Sweden. And back then, if you were born there, you were Lutheran. You would literally have to tell the church you didn't want to be Lutheran, because the state and the church were one. They was not yet separated. And so I was confirmed when I was 14, and I didn't believe in anything. And so then I had to have these experiences for myself in order to really understand how divine our existence is and how interconnected we all are. And that everything we do and say and think is going to affect everything else around you the entire earth, the plants, the animals, the people. Everything is affected by you and what you do and say and think, right?
Amazing. Yes. And as you reveal, it's wonderful to hear the remembering of these vital properties, because as we both know, the 3D world lives in a dichotomy, and often the wonder, the awe, the beauty, the essence of what you just revealed to us is not always countersigned by 3D world. And so if you were to sum up in a nutshell why you feel the near-death experiences were implicit in the awakening of this beautiful embodiment of spirit that you've just revealed to us, because as we hear you describing, obviously we feel the pulsations that arise from you. What was the dichotomy about between the before and after?
Right. So the way I look at it is, it was my incarnation. I literally chose to have this in my life, these experiences, and to grow up the way I grew up, to have the belief system I had, and then have to experience it for myself. And then having the spirit world talk to me took me 12 years to truly believe in the spirit world. And I'm so scientific. So even though I had these 2 near-death experiences, I would start writing down things. Okay, spirit world tells me or shows me this is going to happen, or, this is what's going to happen on Wednesday. And I would write it down, or I would tell my kids. So I would have evidence, because every time something happened, I would just say, oh, it's just a deja vu. It's just a deja vu. It can't be. It can't be. You can't see the future, right? But the truth is we can. We are so connected to the past, the present, and the future, and all our ancestors that are in the spirit world. And we are affected by everything, that they did back then, because that's how interconnected we truly are. So going through these near-death experiences, I think for me, part of it is to help other people understand how divine we truly are and how interconnected we truly are, because I was one of those people. And so when I tell my whole story, I share my near-death experiences on different interviews, sometimes in the comments, people will say, I'm just like you. I don't have any belief, right? And so that's who I was. I was this one person until I had my near-death experiences, and then I became this other person. So it has a very clear cut of my first life and my second life, as I call it, or my second and third life. It's a before and after. The person I was before, up until that first near-death experience, is very different from the person I was starting the day after. Because the day after, not only did I leave my body in the ER, but then the day after, I heard my sister-in-law talk to me as I'm lying in that hospital bed, and she had just passed away 10 days earlier. And I'm thinking, this is it. I'm losing it. I'm going crazy. Yesterday, I think I left my body in the ER, and now I think I can hear my sister-in-law. And so it was very upsetting, because I didn't believe in any of it, and I was experiencing it for myself. So it can be, if my belief system had been there is an afterlife, the soul lives forever, there is angels out there that help us, it would have been very different. It would just have confirmed my own beliefs, and I would just have stepped right into it. But because I came from that very atheist, materialistic view, it took me a long time, and I had to keep writing things down for 12 years until after 12 years, I got the message that I was supposed to go to med school, become a doctor. I was to write 2 books, no, wait, 3. I was to bring messages and healing to the people. And I just said to the spirit, well, what are you talking about? I don't know what to write about. I've never thought myself being an author. And what am I supposed to do? What messages? What healing? Right? It didn't make sense. And the spirit world would just say, when the time is right, we will tell you. First, you have to do this. Go get your pre-med classes taken. And so it was just a step-by-step, guidance along the way. And I got to med school, finally got to med school many, many years later. And I said, I'm here. What do you want me to do now? And for 4 years, all the spirit world said, finish your degree, focus on your classes. And then as soon as I graduated, I was guided to go to England and study at Arthur Findlay College and start working as a medium. And then it's after that everything got integrated. So now everything is integrated in the work that I do, with working with the spirit world and working with health and healing and bringing healing to the people. So now, finally, I got those messages in 2004, but it's not until now that they're starting to make sense. And it's almost 20 years later. When I work with people and they want to turn their life around, and they say, no, what are my spirit guides saying? Or what are my ancestors telling me? And they want a quick change. But I tell them it's never quick. The spirit world will give you these little carrots, and then literally will take you years to get there, because life really is a journey, right? So we're on this life journey, and we're just keep growing and changing and growing our consciousness and evolving as a human on this planet.
Yeah. So many questions. Do you feel that this particular element of now I get it, but actually even after awakening from 2 near-death experiences, my belief was suspended, even though I was actually accessing this supernatural energy, this information? Was this to do with the fact that you were suspended in the density of time?
That I could access the information?
No.
Or
That you weren't fully believing in the essence of the information. I mean, to have the experiences that you had, near-death experiences, not that I'm suggesting for one moment that people are yearning to die to experience,
right.
because the reality is quite
Right.
further from truth. But what I'm interested in is the mechanism within yourself, the neurological, the physiological. If we think, I'm thinking holistically of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritually. What's taking place within you that suspended the belief? Because after all, moving into the preternatural experience of near death, moving into the non-physical, of being witness to the angelic communion, the angelic council, through an iridescent sound quality of light, these are all extraordinary supernatural impressions. And so when you came back into flesh, so to speak, what I'm interested in is why your belief was suspended. What was happening within you that suspended the belief?
I think just the way I was raised. My father was a physician. He grew up going to Sunday school. He knew the Bible inside out. But he didn't want to push it on us. And he said, that's your choice. You get your confirmation. But he was a true scientist. He did not believe, having gone through Sunday school as a child, he did not believe in God. He did not believe in the Bible. And my mom was more spiritual that way, and had more of an open mind, but we weren't churchgoers. And I think that very scientific upbringing, just, I was very much like my dad. So I think, I just resonated with that. And, Dad's right. And there is nothing beyond the physical. Why would there be? But still, I had spiritual experiences as a child. I saw spirits in the candle flame, especially when I was with grandma, and I would tell my brother, there's a man in the candle. There's a man in the candle flame. And my brother would look and say, where? I don't see it. And so I had a lot of these kind of shamanic experiences as a child. And my grandmother was very spiritual. And she would know when people passed away because she would tell me in the morning, the bird flew into her window at 2:00 in the morning. That means that this particular person had passed. And we had to get in the little rowboat with a little tiny motor and take the boat to a different island in order for my grandma to make a phone call with a pay phone back then to find out what happened to this person. And she would be, of course, right. And that person had in fact passed at 2:00 in the morning. And so my grandmother was very spiritual, but the family I came from was not. And so I had these experiences, and I just kept thinking, even though I had the experience, I kept thinking maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe it's something the brain does when it's dying, and it creates this imaginary place, right? And so I kept thinking that it must just be my brain that has produced these images and this experience. And then 2 years, and then I had this bone marrow suppression. I was really sick. I wasn't making enough blood. And I had my second near-death experience. And that's when I saw the grid. And it said it was, after that things really started to change. And I started to really understand that something was different. All my watches would stop. The television would turn on when I walked by it. Vacuum cleaner turned on. The VCR wouldn't turn on. And I had all these electrical interference problems, which for those that are familiar with IANS, International Association of Near-Death Studies, they have a whole list now with the physiological and psychological after effects that are typical. And this is one of the after effects, is that people have issues with electrical equipment. And I mean, it's funny to somebody who has had a near-death experience. Now things seem to work for the most part. My watches, they tick. But when my daughter was 3, so she was the third child that I was giving birth to, and then had all these experiences, I had 16 or 17 watches in my drawer when she was 3 years old. And they were all had a second hand, because it was the only way I could tell if the watch was still working. And they would just stop, and then sometimes they would start working again. And that just became my existence. So it was a very gradual, even though I had those 2 near-death experiences, my brain was still trying to find and understand why. And why does the brain, I kept thinking it's the brain that does it. Kept being so grounded in the science, and not trusting it. And then I had the spirit world started visiting me, and people that had passed away started visiting me, saying I passed away to the other side. And so this opening just gradually became larger and larger. And, after being proved, I had to be proved that all these things were actually happening. And it wasn't until, 12 years that I knew, after 12 years, I got a message. I just listened, because at that point, I know after 12 years of writing things down, and everything always comes true. And it doesn't matter if the spirit world tells me, they told me my father was going to pass away 4 days before he passed away. And I knew, even it didn't matter what I did. I tried so hard. I said, no, spirit world, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to send healing. I'm going to do all these different things, but you can't change it, because we have an incarnation. And I think that we have timestamps. Literally, this is, you have 3 options to pass away maybe. And some people may have more dates, but I think there is a time and a place when we pass away. Because the world doesn't really make sense when we start looking at it. Why do some people survive the most terrible diseases, and other people die from bee sting in a restaurant, right? Life definitely isn't fair, but I also feel that there is a certain contract that we have, that we live out, and there is a certain time stamp on that, and that is the expiration date. That is when we move on to our next place, the afterlife. So
it's an interesting, it's interesting that we should meet at this time, because this week there is this great portal of the spring equinox, and then the revelation of the fact that heaven's veil is going to be lifted. So we're going to see the interface between the non-physical and the physical much, much more easily. And in fact, I've just been working on a huge exposition on this today, which I will record tomorrow. Yeah. So the gift of the former life would have, the principal gift of that life would have been for you.
What the gift of my first life is?
Yeah.
I would say, well, depends how you look at it, but I would say the gift for me in my first life was that I wasn't spiritual, because the gift in my second life is that I became spiritual.
Yeah, that's not really a gift though, is it? So the gift was you were actually exploring consciousness in a highly inquisitive way, but from a rational, intellectual process. And therefore, I'm sure you had eureka moments or aha moments where you suddenly thought, I knew that about some aspect that was very left brain. And then the gift of future life was that you became fully embracing of the spiritual, which was an extrapolation or an expansion of your bandwidth. And therefore, presumably, you felt yourself to be more holistically involved with the wholeness of your incarnation, whereas before, reviewing it, you were only in a limited bandwidth. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could put it that way. You could put it that way.
And of course, it led you to, I mean, the awakening into spirit led you into the field of medical intuitiveness, or of being able to discern what the causative experience of dis-ease is, using all of your skills. Is that correct?
Right. I would say that started in childhood, though I didn't think of it that way, but going to the grocery store as a young child, and I would see an old lady or an old man with a cane, and I would already wonder, how can I help heal this man? I wonder what caused him to have such difficulty walking. And so that interest in helping and healing was always there as long as I can remember. And then, that then became the, leading me through my experiences, because I would never have become the doctor if I hadn't had my near-death experiences. Even though as a young child I wanted to be a doctor, but I never fulfilled that path, because then I grew up and had boyfriends and got married, and life took me down a different path. And so when I look at my life and I say, well, what did I incarnate for? Was it, I went down this track, that was one option. But if I go that track, I'm going to have 2 near-death experiences, which are going to put me back on the right track. Right. So, so it depends how you look at it. And then after my near-death experiences, and after I went to medical school and fulfilled that path, and then the spirit world, starting to work with the spirit world for other people, not just working with the spirit world for myself or my immediate family. So that was branching out and then bringing that healing to the masses of the people that need my type of work. So
yeah, because it was proclaimed very early in your life. I mean, you proclaimed it yourself that you're a healer, and now you're fulfilling what that unique destiny is about. Healing, presumably meaning a movement back to wholeness, because you were seeing people who were fractured or diseased or affected physiologically, and you had an intuitive understanding that you could help on some level through love, and then through the ability of what skill is. And you trained in naturopathy, is that correct?
Right. So naturopathic medicine is, we have about 5 medical schools in the United States. So you actually go to medical school, but here in the United States, we're not recognized in all states yet. So if you see a naturopathic doctor living in the United States, you have to make sure you live in a licensed state, that you're actually seeing somebody that actually went to medical school. Because in an unlicensed state, you can say you're a naturopathic doctor, even though you didn't go to school. And so in naturopathic medicine, we look at the root cause more of what is the cause of the patient being sick or having symptoms in the first place. And so we don't just study pharmaceutical medicine. We also study homeopathy, botanical medicine, and acupuncture, as well as nutrition. And so we actually have a little bit more pharmaceutical hours than a regular med school student, because we also have to understand the integration with botanical medicine with pharmaceuticals. So we have to have a little bit of a deeper knowledge. But it's a broader, you have a bigger toolbox to treat the person. So when you see somebody, some people don't do well with pharmaceutical medicine, and they're better treated with an herbal botanical medicine. And then for somebody else, it's the opposite. The pharmaceutical medicine works great for this one thing, right? But then they might need acupuncture or homeopathy for something else. So it's a wonderful profession, because you have such a big toolbox compared to a regular MD that gets stuck with the pharmaceutical prescriptions. So it's a better chance to create healing for the patient versus just suppressing the symptoms of a patient.
Yeah. And so therefore it is a smorgasbord.
Right, just like Sweden.
Of different
Yeah.
modalities, to use a common word of today, that leads one towards the totality of what holistic healing is all about. And within the smorgasbord of techniques, or the smorgasbord of the diagnostic, is there one particular skill that you feel very close to or akin with?
Not in terms of working as a physician. It truly will be, each patient is unique.
Yeah.
Each patient deserves the best treatment that we can afford them to put them on the road to healing. But it is really, it varies. It's never just botanical or homeopathy or pharmaceuticals. It's a mixed bag in order to get people well. But not only, you have to heal the physical. And so when because I'm so spiritual, many times I get patients saying, oh, I can heal this. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do all these spiritual things. And granted, there are people that heal, that have miraculous healings, right? We don't really know why. But I always tell them, now it is stuck in your physical body. And so we don't know which ticket you pulled when you were up in heaven before your incarnation. And you said, I'm going to have this experience. I'm going to get this different diseases. But we don't know which ticket you took. Did you take the pharmaceutical ticket, the surgery ticket, the botanical medicine ticket, the homeopathy ticket, the acupuncture ticket, the nutrition, the carrot juice, right? We have no idea. So I always tell them, use all the tools that you have. If the pharmaceutical is working, there's no side effects, use that. Then add all the other different things that you can. The tool bag is big. And it's important to work not just on the physical, but when we have issues in our physical body, we need to use the tools on the physical plane to heal the physical, because that's you're in this plane. But then there is always the spiritual component and the emotional component to any disease. So if you're really truly going to heal somebody, you have to work on not just the physical, but also on the emotional and the spiritual, because I could talk forever on this topic, but when you have emotional issues, right? We know from research, there's certain types of patients that tend to get certain diseases, right? And there's research on that. And so we know that our emotions play a big role. And they have proven that, in labs as well, growing different petri dishes, right? With different cells in them. And so we know that the emotions have an effect on our physical and the diseases that we get. But then we also have the spiritual component and the ancestral component, because what our ancestors experienced, their reactions, their actions, their interactions to all that they experienced during their life has been, not all of it. You're not going to have all of grandpa's, but you might have some of grandpa's issues. And whatever those unresolved issues were of grandpa is what gets passed down. So it's all the things that are swept under the carpet of our ancestors that were never dealt with that gets passed down. And so somebody in the family is carrying, particular, what I call them the wounds of the ancestors, because they did not resolve it. And anything that's unresolved gets passed down. And now we even know that we inherit trauma on the DNA. So it's not even just that invisible grid and we're all connected through consciousness and global consciousness. there's more to it. We have it in our DNA. So, whether you're on the scientific side or the spiritual side, you're connected to your ancestors, and you're carrying their trauma and their diseases within you. And then, but the beautiful part is when people wake up to that and come and see me for ancestral healing, and we figure out what it is that is causing either the disease or emotional issues, stepping into themselves, relationship issues, it doesn't matter what it is, it comes from somewhere. And it comes from those ancestors that we're all connected to. So,
and presumably the choice of the individual to interact with that particular aspect of their blueprint.
Right. So exactly. So we have the free will mixed into all of our actions and reactions and observations, perceptions. And we have that free will component to everything.
Yeah.
But there are times I wonder how much the free will really is, because if things are written out in our astrological chart and we can see major events in our astrological chart, then is this the free will, what I'm going to eat for dinner and the clothes I'm going to wear today, or do I have more free will?
Well, for me, the answer is more. More. It's the multiplicitousness of the way that our consciousness works to create choice. And then, as you were saying earlier, how belief, faith, and trust, as powerful attitudinal muscles, come in to provide us with the conviction, because conviction is a force multiplier of the original substance. But anyways, that this suddenly becomes rather philosophic, which is an interesting conversation, but at the same time, going back into your insight into healing, because after all, that insight occurred when you were very young. And it was just as insightful, just as powerful as you witnessed in your grandmother. Was that your mother's mother?
Yes.
Who had the ability, just as your mother had the ability, it wasn't necessarily on the surface of her life, but it was still something there. So you have this ability. So there is something really interesting in the ancestral line. So what would be the greatest gift of today?
The greatest gift for me?
Yeah, because we were talking about, the question was, what was the gift of the former life experience, the NDEs, and before the accomplishment of being able to join all the dots, which is what you've been doing. And of course, you were saying to us, the spirit world was immensely helpful.
Right.
The image of, because I remember at the age of 11 having the same experience that you were talking about, of seeing the electrical grid, of seeing the electromagnetic grid, which was just fascinating. And now as I see all of the contemporary visuals that we have of the flower of life, I remember that's what I saw as a child. But, I mean, that was a long time ago. We're talking about, I was born in 53, so that was 63. And the awareness that we have now was certainly not fully alive in the cognizance of our peoples then. So I wonder what the greatest gift of today would be.
I would say the greatest gift for me is to be able to help other people, to help them heal, to find a path to healing, and living their lives to their fullest potential.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. So as your bandwidth expanded, also the holistic nature of your outreach, in terms of the way you wanted to purpose your destiny, it also began to expand. And what do you feel is the essence of healing?
The essence of healing would be why, it comes back to why do some people heal and some people don't heal? And what is that essence of healing that allows some people to heal? Part of it, I think, is the incarnation. So did you pull the ticket for this life that you were going to heal, or did you pull the ticket that you're not going to heal? Because I have met plenty of people working as a physician and going through school that wanted nothing more than to heal. and just could not heal. And then there are other people that do heal, and they might be doing the exact same thing. Or maybe the person who doesn't heal had actually a better chance of a better outcome than the one that did heal. And why is it that, babies are born with tumors? They didn't really give it to themselves. Like we can also give ourselves tumors, right? By emotions and things like that. But the true essence of healing, what is it that makes some people? Do you have an answer that what you believe it is, or?
Well, yes, I do, but I was sort of just so intrigued in the uniqueness of your journey and what you were feeling it to be. The true essence of healing. Well, healing for me is a movement back to wholeness, and that when we are diseased, when we are tumored, when we experience cancer, it's to do with a level of malfunction that is taking place within our biochemical being, which can be as a result of mental habit, can be a result of physiological, can be a result of emotional trauma, and the combination of all three, because we are holistic. Biology is biography. And then how we actually can reach into the absolute causation of what is necessary to heal whatever the symptom may be, or whatever the experience may be. We can go deep into the very causative. I feel that we go deep into the subatomic particle of why we chose to be in separation through the neuroses of separation rather than through the glory of the diversity of, of duality. And that once we heal the separation aspect, the neurosis of separation, then we move into the very essence of what wholeness is all about. And thereby we become all one.
Yes. But just because you believe, or your belief system says that, yes, I am part of all that is, we are all one. But even people who believe that are still sick, and they are unable to create healing for whatever reason. And so that essence, the essence being going back to wholeness, that is if you are on the healing journey or the healing path. But in order to truly heal, what is the essence that creates that healing in that person?
Yeah.
What is it that's taking place? Is it taking place on a spiritual, emotional, and physical level all at the same time, to then change the perception of the disease itself, and then the mind over body then heals it, right? So we know people who have had near-death experiences, and they come back and then they heal. 2 weeks later, they're declared disease-free. So is it that aha moment, that awakening of understanding why they were sick in the first place, that creates the healing? So when I work with ancestral healing, it's all about creating the aha moment. So it's your subconscious mind that feeds the conscious mind, and you're not aware of what it is, because you're so stuck in that rut and so stuck in that energetic loop that you can't get out of it. And it's not until somebody else comes in that understands the ancestral patterns that can say, I see where this is coming from. This is your mother, this is your grandmother, or this is your aunt and uncle, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the lights go on and they say, wow, now I understand, now I see it. And I work with, physicians too. Physicians see me, psychotherapists, counselors. And so it's fascinating because these people work with it. They work with trauma. They work with other people. They see patients on a daily basis, but we can't see it. And it's fascinating because it really made me understand, by allowing me to work with other practitioners like this, that just because we're practicing that medicine doesn't mean we can heal ourselves. And sometimes you have to have somebody come in and help you understand why. What is it that's causing you to behave and act and have certain emotions and do certain things that then creates that disease? And so it's a healing journey that I think is different. That's why the Western medicine we're so good at suppressing the symptoms and let people go back to work, and we can control those symptoms. But the Western medicine is not very good at healing people. And so that, bringing that spiritual and emotional component back into the physical medicine. And I think many doctors, when they go to med school, they're aspired to treat people, to heal people. But then I think a lot of our medicine is just suppressing symptoms, and doctors don't have enough time to spend with our patients, etc.
And so we're really defining the limits of human consciousness when we're seeing the disadvantages that are often created unconsciously by very well-meaning people who haven't moved into the journey of going deep, deep, deep into the substance of causation or the essence of healing. They're just dealing with symptom.
Yeah.
And do you find that you're dealing with common symptoms? The nature of the wise counsel that you've developed, that is both outer and inner about the nature of healing. Do you find that you are prone to drawing to you patients that are experiencing similar tendencies or similar syndromes? Or I noticed that, for example, you were fascinated by regenerative holistic medicine and anti-aging and so forth, which, of course, as we know, is an interplay between the physiology and between our neurology, meaning between the mind and the heart, or between thought and feelings. Because we know that if we have the will, we can heal, because you and I have interfaced with people that, for example, have cancer. Although their oncologists are saying, well, actually, you've only got 3 months to live, we take them through a program of holistic healing using other devices beyond our own, and they heal. They move through a miraculous intervention. And so is there a particular, do you have a like of one particular sin? Do you have, or just as you examine the richness of your clientele, the people to you for healing, that are there particular syndromes or particular tendency or particular aspects that need to be healed?
Yes, I would say a lot of my patients, if we start on the physician side, many of them are patients that slipped through the cracks, that were either misdiagnosed or they didn't find the correct diagnosis. And then if you go to the spiritual side, when I work as a medical intuitive, I get even more of that. And I get a lot of people that have been sick for a long time. I've had people say, I was misdiagnosed for 20 years. I've been in pain for 20 years. So, 10 different physicians, and just kept slipping through the cracks. So I get a lot of those, and and then they show up on the screen, and I say, "Do you have this disease?" Which is just interesting, because I think the spirit world sends the people to me that they know I will recognize the symptoms. How it's like we get drawn to someone. There's something that clicks. We see or hear something about someone. We say, "That's it. That's the person. I'm going to see that person." So I think that people are guided from the spirit. The spirit world is guiding the people. It's like, go see this Dr. Lottie. She'll know what you have. So it's fascinating, and it's fascinating for me to work as a medical intuitive. So when I work as a medical intuitive, I call it medical intuitive and wellness, because sometimes people want to pick your brain, and sometimes people live in other countries, right? About something. They told me I have this disease. Do you know of anything else, or blah blah blah? And so I can give them information. I can't treat them as a patient because they're not my patient. But I can give them information and say, talk to your doctor about these different things and look at this website and things like that to educate them. But many times these people that come to me for the medical intuitive have just been slipping through the cracks for many, many years, and not been able to find the correct diagnosis. And to help those people are so rewarding, and say, I feel like you have, so it's all different too. sometimes I just tune in and I'll say, I feel this symptom, and this symptom in your body. Like you have a headache, your stomach hurts, and you're dizzy every day, right? And they say, yes, how did you know that? And I say, I feel it. I feel it in my body. And then, they'll say, oh yeah, I have this, blah, blah, blah. And then we talk about that. And then as I work with people, I then also talk to the spirit world at the same time. And so it's fascinating, the healing that can be created in those situations. Not only do they get guided for the correct treatment, and sometimes I've had, said to people, you need surgery, and this is the kind of surgeon you need, and they're on this list, and look on this website. And then, people tell me I had surgery 3 months after you diagnosed me, after 20 years of being in pain, and that surgery and changed their life. But for people to have to seek out a medical medium or somebody who's working spiritually, this tells you a lot about our medical system in the West, because we're missing a lot of things. And we don't have, just because we get sick, a lot of people think, oh, I get sick, I'm going to go to the hospital. But we don't have tests for everything. We don't know a lot of things. When I got out of med school, the first thing I thought was, that was it. I feel like I don't know anything, right? Even though you spent 4 years in med school. But you understand how much you don't know and how many diseases we don't know how to treat yet, right? And so if you have something that falls into that, there is a lab test for it, there is a medication for it, great, you're in luck. But there is a lot of people that don't have that, and they get, gaslit when they go to the doctor and they say, oh, it's all in your head. I have those poor people all the time. And I say, the first thing I do is reassure them, it's not in your head. Why would you be here if it was in your head? So working spiritually and bringing that back in, I think is really important to create healing. And I love what you were saying about what you do, work with people, and then they heal, right? It's magical. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I may, just for a second, we have about 10 minutes left. And if there are any questions, because people are tuning in, welcome all of those people that I haven't said hello to, Sarah, Nicholas, and all the way from Scottsdale, right? So there you are in Scottsdale, Arizona. Profit, meaning the P-R-O-F-I-T, and then the prophet, which we know as, the oracular communication with both all aspects of time. A man, bear, pig, hello. And Melody, I've thought the same thing about ancestral trauma, so tuning in with all sorts of synchronicities here. If you have any questions to ask, any of you, welcome Melody, welcome Michael, or is it Michael Curry. We do not know what each person's soul purpose is. Well, yes and no, because, when we're intuitive, we can actually have an appreciation of someone in a very subjective, objective way. We're reading their soul's blueprint. And so we can have a sense. What's important, of course, is that we make suggestions, and it's up to the individual to reveal to themselves what their total soul purpose is. But I have a whole theory about that, because we're really preoccupied at the moment. I'm sure Lottie will say also that so many people who are coming to you saying, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my purpose is. And of course, what they're doing is working purely on the cerebral or on the mental body level of, but I need to define what my pathway will be. And what I've discovered over the years, because my purpose has changed radically over the last 7 decades or 40 decades, that we're here to optimize our creativity full of love and joy, and that's our purpose. But of course, we need to bring conviction to the action of that. If you have any questions to ask, please do reach out. What Michael also goes on to say is that to heal is to remember wholeness, whatever that means for each person. It might even mean the moment of death, because I find it very interesting, apropos what you were saying about the time frames, that somebody can come and they've been in persistent pain for the last 20 or 25 years. I mean, actually, the number is purely at random, isn't it? Because it can be much longer as well. And it seems that their interface with allopathic medicine has not really brought them into a full cure, because the symptom has been treated rather than the causation of the disease. And then suddenly there you are, the goose with the golden egg, saying, but maybe it's to do with this. Let's actually look at the entire diagnostic and let's see what your body is saying in relation to the way that you feel, and therefore what that communication is with your soul. This is deeply karmic, which is a subject that we haven't actually touched on as yet. And so death is also part of the experience, just as it takes 25 years. So they need to go through that experience to understand not what the story is, but what the theme is, that is the karma. Any questions? Any questions? You're being very slow about asking questions. Love, 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 love. Thank you, Artwork Inner. I love it. Hello from Northern California. Any questions for dear Dr. Lottie? Anyway, so I have a question.
Go for it.
The role of karma in ancestral wound healing. Interface? Any particular deliberations, experiences, intuitions, knowings about the interface of karma and ancestral wounding?
Yes, I would definitely say there is an element of karma that we inherit from our ancestors. I see it when I work with people. As much as we like to think that we are an independent soul living on this planet Earth, and we have nothing to do with, for many people, crazy ancestors, right? But the truth is that we do. We are extremely entangled with our ancestors. And I believe the people who won the physics and the Nobel Prize in physics proved that non-locality with photons, and, two photons meet, one go to Australia, one goes to England, they're still interconnected. And whatever the photon in Australia does is going to affect the photon in England. Yeah. And then they have little photon babies, and the photon babies are entangled because their parents were entangled. And so what the little baby photons in Australia does is going to affect the little baby photons in England, right? So science is catching up to what spirituality has known for thousands of years. There is an entanglement with our ancestors. And even though we think we are independent souls, we really aren't. But when things don't go well in our life, take a look at your ancestral tree. Who were your ancestors? What did they do? Did they have their own company and they mistreated their employees? Well, you're now entangled with that as well. Yes. And so everything gets, that grid around the earth is, even with its little glitter nodes. It's now, I look at that as Indra's net, for those that are familiar with Buddhism or Hinduism. And that's how I see our life here on earth. We are all reflections of everything else, and that includes the ancestors. Yeah. And whatever you throw out there, it's like a boomerang, and it is just going to come right back at you, or the boomerang might land on one of your other ancestors. But all those actions, reactions, and interactions that you send out into the world and that your ancestors sent out, we are all entangled with that. And so as much as I would like to say there is no karma, I'm going to have to say, yes, there is karma, because that is what I see when I work with people. We are that entangled.
Yes. And that is one of the reasons why we're experiencing a density on planet Earth at this time of the great shift, this arousal of the Age of Aquarius, is that we're just slowly beginning to see that actually we're unraveling the entanglement of vast karmic patterns, which was sort of explored, I think probably it's going back 40, nearly 50 years ago, when Rupert Sheldrake, the great biologist, moved into the discovery of the morphogenetic field. Our cell has memory that is very acute. And then, of course, he extrapolated and moved into all sorts of biological examination or experimentation around the substance of the issue of karma. And he, of course, as we know, has been quite an iconoclast in the field of science, because we know most of the scientific modalities or the scientific theories are based on happenstance rather than on the true experience of discovering causation. So it brings us into the very deep nature of the fascinating mystery of who we are as spiritual beings having a human experience. And, you're at the forefront, evidently, of being able to bring people into the complicit nature of holism.
Mm-hmm.
And as you look into, because you have this ability as a psychic, as a medium, as an
Mm-hmm.
oracle, to look into the trajectory of our current process, I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that in a very positive way, that we're
Mm-hmm.
moving into holism. Are there any revelations that you have about future healing that we can, really surf on today as we listen to your wisdom?
Mm-hmm. I think as we raise our consciousness, we will understand the power that we do possess, because we have so much more power than I think most people are aware of, the true power that they hold within them. But as the general population, as humanity discovers this power that some of us are already tuned into, right? And bringing that to the people and helping them unfold that and heal. But once we heal, right? So once we create that aha moment and we heal emotionally and spiritually, it's we shift that consciousness level, we raise that consciousness level, but it becomes more common knowledge. So people will say, in the future, I'm getting a cold. I need to sit in meditation for 3 hours and change this, right? And we will have greater power over our physical body because we are more connected spiritually, right, up and out into the universe itself, and that global consciousness, because more of us will raise our consciousness, global consciousness itself becomes greater, right? And so we are become smarter and smarter, and more, not necessarily smarter, but more consciousness, more awareness
Yeah,
is given to the people. And with that raised consciousness, the healing will be different.
yeah,
We'll be able to heal in a different way than we can today, because we will be more connected and the
yeah.
consciousness will be greater.
Yeah, beautiful. It's really about the distillation of wisdom, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? That, as you were saying, that do we get greater? Do we get greater? Do we greater? And maybe, the what we're talking about is being drenched by light. And so
Mm-hmm.
the light brings complete transparency into every aspect of what it is to be a spiritual being having a human experience, so that we really move into the deeper part of the essence of what it is to be a spiritual being having a human experience. And then
Right.
it's not just, it sounds like a very clever identification. For me, because my whole life has been about teaching, about living for myself as an embodied witness of the divine and what it is to be an embodied individual. So that we can literally have the presence of the divine with us as we walk through life. There was a question here which might be really interesting for you. How do we entangle the density using our higher self?
How do we entangle,
How do we untangle
untangle?
density using our higher self?
It depends what it is. So if you are entangled with your ancestors and you're having either a physical problem or emotional problem, you have to create understanding of where that is coming from. Who in the family had that experience, or why did you then develop this emotion regarding this experience? But once you understand where that is coming from, you can create healing for it. So it's creating that aha moment, letting that light bulb go on and say, now I understand why I have this fear, because it's coming from, my mom. My mom had the exact same fear. Now I get it. It was my environment, it was the way I was raised, and then I aligned with my mom, I experienced the same feelings, and all these different patterns repeat. But it's creating that aha moment that creates the untanglement, and then once you see that, you can create healing, and you can heal yourselves, send healing to your ancestors, and out in the universe, backwards and forwards in time, until all those entangled with that same issue. So it creates a lot of healing for one person to step up to that plate and create healing for themselves, and they're thinking when they come that they're just creating healing for themselves or their family. But the truth is that the impact is greater because we are all entangled, right? So remember those little photons. So when you create healing for yourself, those that come after you, your ancestors, all your relatives, everybody that comes in contact with you, because you've changed your frequency now, because you created healing for that. And I've had clients come tell me that, you know, they come from a traumatic family, and the client might be in their 50s and then say, you won't believe what happened, but now my brother is going to counseling because he said, what's happened to you? You've changed. And all they did was realize where those wounds were coming from. And then it heals. But then now they are radiating healing. They're not sending out that same frequency anymore. So all those that come in contact with them are now feeling that, oh, there's something different with that person now, right? But that's how, when you heal the world, for every person that I can help heal or create healing for, that's going to then send out from them and help create healing for all the other people. So we are all entangled, right? So whenever each person steps up to that plate to create healing, and then it creates healing for the whole world.
Wonderful. Well, there's a wonderful note to finish on. And of course, really, you know, as I review objectively all that we've shared, that if we can move from the dissolution of the dis-ease, which is all about separation, into the wonderment of pure love, then love and forgiveness heal the whole thing. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us. It's been a joy having you here. Thank you so much. And for all of you people tuning in, thank you for coming. And don't forget that next week at the same time will be the wonderful Chloe Goodchild. And then the week after that will be Lynn McTaggart. And so we're getting to the end of 12 global female soul stewards. And what extraordinary women have been sitting with me. And I feel deeply, deeply honored. So thank you, Lottie, for coming and joining us. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
And namaste, everybody. Namaste, namaste. Don't forget that tomorrow is the spring equinox, and the following day is going to be just equally as big. And for those of you who are interested, on Saturday of this week, I am running a retreat workshop, which is called The Loving Art of Forgiveness. And there are a few places left, so do go on to my website. Oh, before we go, please, Ryan, could you bring up Lottie's website? Oh, there's the angelsofatlantis.com/events. You know this from me. What about drlottie.com? There we are. Pretty simple. Bless you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye, everybody.